Welcome, friends, fans, whoever happens to be on here, to Munchies and Minis. My name is Catherine Barson. East. Sorry, my name is Catherine Barsonistas, and you're watching the Gluttonous Geek presents Munchies and Minis. This is a Dungeons and Dragons themed cooking demonstration and painting show where I first cook up a snack inspired by something from Dungeons or Dragons or any kind of tabletop role-playing game or even fantasy game, and then I make a snack, and then I paint a mini. I apologize, my brain is in 50 million directions because I'm going to Chicago next week, and that means I need to get not only this week's recipes done, but I also have to get next week's and a little bit of the week after's recipes done within 1 week. So as you can imagine, I'm kind of brain dead right now. I just came off of finishing up a post for my final Thronesgiving recipes, i.e. recipes inspired by Game of Thrones. The last recipes I have are for Daenerys' dragon eggs, which are stuffed artichokes, cooked sort of Scotch egg style, and roast pork with a beer and leek gravy for Jon Snow. Sort of a table for the Targaryens. But I digress. After I cook today's recipe, which is inspired by Dungeons & Dragons, I will be working on finishing up our miniature, painting our miniature, Bubbles the Belligerent Orc. So, yeah. As I was saying, I am doing the 52 weeks of D&D Fan Art Challenge. Last week, we covered the word chaotic with a recipe not only inspired by Dungeons & Dragons, but also by Munchkin Crazy Cooks, where we did a chaotic beets and sweets pizza. This week, the challenge word is, off the top of my head, okay, thanks husband, it's Dexterity. So we're going to be making a recipe featured from Dungeons & Dragons, the Ultimate Food Guide Dungeons & Dragons. If you Google it, it should just pop right up. Also, one of the issues of Dragon Magazine, I'm still trying to figure out which one I downloaded, happened to have it, because my brain is, like I said, dead. But it's for stuffed trout with succotash, and I'm going to be stuffing trout with succotash, wrapping it up in bacon, and then roasting it. So, since bacon makes everything better, I imagine you're going to like it. The reason why I'm having it work for the word dexterity is because it's going to require a lot of knife work. Pretty simple stuff once you get used to it, but it's still a lot of knife work that you're going to have to learn to cut the various vegetables that you're going to find in the succotash, as well as cut up some of the steelhead trout that I have for this recipe so I can roll it a little easier. You'll see what I mean when I get to that point. Whew. And first, it is time to breathe and get a drink of wine as the sunset around me starts to blind me. That's right, I have a kitchen window that happens to face the west. And I guess we're going to get started. So, I'm just going to switch to our prep cam, because first we're going to do a little bit of prepping vegetables. So, the reason also why I'm saying that this is going to be inspired by Dexterity is that I am basing this off of, the items in D&D that give you a boost to Dexterity, which would be Elvenkind, Elvenkind whatever. So, Cloak of Elvenkind, Gloves of Elvenkind, Boots of Elvenkind, you get the picture. Now, elves, as described by Ed Greenwood of, Wizards of the Coast fame, have a tendency to enjoy a lot of various plant-based foods, obviously, but there's also 2 ingredients that happen to show up quite often in elvish recipes, and the first would be green shoots, which would be leeks. Leeks are pretty much everything. Elves love leeks, especially if they can use it to make it as spicy as possible. We're going to be cooking this, so it's not going to be all that spicy, but leeks themselves have a very kind of garlic oniony flavor, so we're going to be using that in place of a standard onion in a standard succotash recipe. So we're going to be using that, as well as another popular elvish ingredient, green spear, or as you can see, asparagus. Once again, they use this stuff in practically everything. I also have a an Elvish green spear and leeks stew on my blog. It is vegan. You don't have to make it vegan, but it's kind of creamy with an almond milk base. If you want to check that out, you can go to the blog at thegluttonousgeek.com, or as I pop it into the chat, there it is. If you want to check that out, just look up the tabletop section in my table of contents, and you can find that recipe. But once again, we're going to be using some asparagus for our succotash, as well as some standard traditional succotash ingredients like red bell pepper. Get out of the bag. Ah. Only needed one slippery thing, my butt. Okay. Roma tomato. And a succotash would not be a succotash if it weren't for some fresh corn. The reason why I say this is that succotash literally means cracked corn. So, we're going to be using some of that, as well as some fresh mint. So, let's go ahead and chop up some veggies. First, I'm going to start with the vegetables that make probably the least amount of mess. So I'm going to start with the leek here. So, here is a quick, and especially since I am covering a lot of knife work in this episode, tutorial on how to hold a chef's knife properly, or just really any kitchen knife properly. Don't hold it like this, because, as you see, it's slipping all over the place. What you want to do is take the the index finger of your dominant hand, put that under the blade here, like right up against the handle there. Then put your thumb right there on the blade, right up against the handle. Now you just want to curl your fingers around the handle comfortably, adjust as necessary. So you're still having a pinch, but the pinch on the blade, but you're not putting all your strength into that, which is going to wear you out really quickly, as well as give you hand cramps, which you don't want that. You don't want your hand to cramp as you're cutting, because that may cause your knife to slip. You just want to be comfortable while maintaining a good control on the knife, grip on the knife. So, once again, got it wrapped around, and I'm going to breathe, because I've been talking a million miles a minute. Take another drink of wine. Cheers. Out of my adult tiki sippy cup. And you want to make sort of a rocking motion like that as you cut, while not letting your knife completely leave the cutting board. None of this nonsense. You'll ruin your knife, and a dull knife is also more likely to catch and slip. So, but as you see, I got my grip here. Even just on a comfortable hold, that blade's not going anywhere. So, holding your knife properly, first we want to get this whole part off the leek. Yeah, I know it seems like a waste, but I'll show you what to do with that so it doesn't seem like you are. So first, cut that off. Then, you want to cut this into much more manageable pieces. So I'm doing about 2 to 3 inch pieces here. And then finally taking off that root end. Okay. So I've got all this here. I'm not going to waste it. I am going to put it into a freezer bag with the rest of my kitchen scraps. Because once this thing is full, I'm going to be putting the whole lot of it into my crock pot. I'm just going to cut that up a little bit more so it'll fit better in the bag. I'm going to put it into my crock pot, fill it with water, and then cook it on low for about 8 hours. What you'll end up is about 10 to 12 cups of homemade stock, which stock can get pretty expensive if you're buying fresh stuff, if you're buying already made. I mean, granted, yeah, bouillon or the little kind of stock in paste form isn't all that expensive, but it's also very heavy on salt. And if you happen to have any kind of issues with salt intake, it doesn't give you much control over how much you eat. So this lets you have a little bit more control over your salt intake, as well as, you know, not spend any extra money on stock. You're welcome. Okay, so now that I've gotten my main manageable pieces here of leek, I now want to cut them into half moons. So first I use that as a stable surface, slice in half. And when you're going to find on parts of the leek that are closer to that green end, you're also likely to find a bit of dirt, like right there we got some dirt. So what you want to do is just kind of carefully hold it over the sink and rinse out between the layers of the leek to get some of that extra dirt out, because it tends to be kind of gritty if you don't get that out. And it looks like we're fine on that piece. So, I'm just going to repeat with the next two big pieces there. A big thing with cutting is creating as stable of a surface as possible to make cutting much more safe for yourself. Okay, so we have no dirt there. Oh, okay, I'll check. And we're good. And one last one. And you see, I have no dirt at this point down here. I mean, it's so tightly bound to the rest of the leek, it just doesn't get down there. You're mostly going to have to worry about it on these upper parts. So, now I just want to then slice these into half moons, about, I would say, a little less than half an inch thick there. So you see, I'm just kind of pushing the leek towards the knife and going at a steady pace, but not too fast because I don't want to hurt myself. And as you see, it's separating. That's perfectly fine. That's what we want it to do. I'm just going to put that into a prep bowl here so it's ready to go. Yep. Make sure you have enough clear space while doing this. Okay. And I will say now that this recipe is going to make more succotash than you're probably going to use in this particular usage. However, it's such a great little side dish that you can top pretty much anything with it. Like, sear up a steak, put some succotash on top. Grill up a chicken breast, succotash. And it'll also keep in the fridge for about a week or so. So you can just kind of add it as you go. Or you can just like maybe make some rice up and put that on top with a fried egg. Very tasty. So, once again. Slicing that up. Didn't quite get that through that time. All right, that is all of my leek. So I'm just going to set that next to the stove for when I'm ready for it, and then move on to my other vegetables. So next up, I am going to cut this bell pepper. So here's kind of a standard way if you want to, that you want to do this. I want to do a standard dice. Now, you could just kind of slide that along the side and carefully remove it, but I'm lazy, and this is probably the safest way to do it. So what you want to do is kind of hold it steady here by the stem, and then you want to just slice off the sides of your bell pepper. This is going to save you so much energy and mess, because as you see, I'm avoiding the seed pod entirely as I do this. And as I hold onto the stem, I'm holding it up and stable so I can get that last piece there. And there you go. Seed pod that has barely shed at all, saving me so much cleanup than if I tried to cut around it. It tends to just kind of seeds go all over the place. So that's just going to live there for now until I'm ready to get my stock bag out. And now I'm just going to carefully remove the ribs. I mean, this part's not entirely necessary, but it makes it a little easier to dice later, so just gonna shed that off. Cut that in half so it's easier to get to. I mean, the biggest thing about knife technique is to make things a heck of a lot easier to cut. But honestly, you're halfway there if you just happen to have a knife that's sharp and that you maintain its sharpness. You do not want a dull knife because dull knives slip. And so therefore, here's a few rules of keeping your knives sharp. 1. Don't put your kitchen knives in the dishwasher. What happens when you put them in the dishwasher is that they rattle as the dishwasher goes against pretty much anything that's next to it, causing this edge here to get a lot of burrs and just lose a lot of its teeth. Because an edge of a knife is actually very, very microscopic little teeth along the edge here. A knife is sharp when those teeth are aligned and also present at a straight edge. So a lot of times when you see someone honing a knife, they're actually straightening out those little teeth and burrs so they're all aligned and at a straight edge. So a lot of times, especially if you're like me and you end up cutting in sort of an angle, it tends to bend sort of one way or the other. That's why you want to maintain the sharpness of your knives. Okay, rule number 2 of maintaining a sharp knife. Don't chop like this. I think that should be pretty self-explanatory. And rule number 3, so far that I'm thinking of keeping a sharp knife, do not scrape your knife against, the edge of your knife against a bowl. Especially if it's a metal bowl or a stoneware bowl. Do not, as you're putting stuff into a bowl, do not scrape or hit the edge of your knife against the bowl. That's how you damage your knives. So, MayCool123, hey there. Hey there. Hey there to you too. Thank you for joining my stream. You're watching the Gluttonous Geek Presents Munchies and Minis, a D&D inspired cooking demonstration as well as a mini painting demo. So today I am making succotash stuffed trout of Dexterity, based off of the 52 weeks of D&D challenge. How am I doing? I am exhausted. This is the, I think probably, I've been cooking a lot of stuff because I'm going to be going out of town next week, so my brain is pretty much fried. So yeah, that's how I'm doing. Between working a full-time job, streaming twice a week, doing a blog post every week, and having to cook up a lot of stuff ahead of time before heading out for a week. So that's how we're going. Okay, so yeah, getting back to my train of thought here, choo-choo. I'm just going to be removing the ribs on this very carefully. Trying to make this as easy as possible. Making sure to put the edge of the knife away from me as I cut. Okay. You see it kind of shaved right off of there? Alright, so now I just want to do a simple dice. So I want to cut my slices about 1/2 inch, just a little bit under thick. So there we go. And then I want to line these up to make things go a lot faster. And just kind of eyeball how large at 1/2 inch or just slightly under is. And the biggest thing is I want this all to cook in the same amount of time. So I think I'm actually going to throw that in the bowl of the Leeks. Have it written otherwise, but I'm going to rewrite that recipe before I post up the card tomorrow. And the reason why I'm separating these out is that these are going to go into the pan at different times. So, once again, just cutting those about 1/2 inch thick, just slightly less. And kind of drawing it through there. See, I caught myself there. Instead of using the edge of my knife to scrape it up, I used the back edge. So that's not as likely to ruin your knife. It's just more likely to ruin your hands, which I think is pretty important. Don't ruin your hands. Hands are important for cooking. So, just going to speed things up a little bit here, because you probably want to see the rest of the stuff demonstrated. Like I said, this is definitely going to be more succotash than we're going to be using for today's recipe. But I like succotash. Okay. And we got one more panel there. Cool. All right. So our bell pepper is cut up. Now I'm going to move on to our asparagus. And, though actually, no, I'm going to move to our corn first, because I kind of need to gauge how much asparagus I'm going to need for this recipe. So, I know I could save us a lot of time, but I have done this earlier, but I actually did not have time to do this earlier. So I just need to remove all of the corn silk here. And yeah, well, you could use canned corn for this or frozen corn. I just prefer using fresh, especially since I'm wanting to demonstrate how to remove corn from the cob in a way that's not going to drive you absolutely bonkers. So, there's one, and where's my other one? Haha, here we are. Making all sorts of interesting noises as it comes off. And this is the corniest peep show ever. See how many followers I lose with that dad joke. Okay. And oh yes, by the way, I have a thing here on the Gluttonous Geek presents Munchies and Minis called Dad Joke of the Week. If you happen to give the best dad joke of this episode, I will send you the recipe card for this recipe for free. So, let your inner middle-aged patriarch fly. Right, so, I forgot this bit, but it's crucial. It's the easiest way to remove corn from the cob. And I'm kicking myself for forgetting it, because I'm going to make a hell of a lot of noise getting the thing I need, because I forgot it. Hi, Princess. And make sure to put the stool back here. Let's see, how are we doing? And the reason why I have this stool here is that my cat Ginger sometimes likes to hop up on it while I'm cooking. Especially to meow at me and beg for whatever I happen to be cooking. If you're wondering where she is, she's been circling my feet for the past 15 minutes. So that is there for then. Okay, so what I have here is a bundt pan. It's a bundt cake pan, and this is going to make removing the corn from this cob so much easier. Yes, I know that looks kind of naughty, but you see I've got the end of this cob right through the hole, giggity, and now I just want to carve down the sides, and being very careful when I get to the bottom there so it doesn't damage the edge of my knife all that much. So I'm doing kind of slight sawing motions here to remove that corn. Okay. There's one. And that little bit of corn silk off of there. There we go. And the last bit there. Okay. So, let's say that's about a cup and a half worth of fresh corn. Throw that into there. I could probably stand to do a little bit more, so I think I'm just going, I've got about 2 other ears of corn just in case. I'm going to throw another one in there. Or what the hell. I've got nothing else to be doing tonight, other than, cooking a meal and painting a mini. And this went pretty quick, so I'm just going to do this really quick here to just carve up the rest of this, because yes, I'm going to end up with a lot of succotash, but it can go on pretty much anything I'm cooking up later on. And if all else fails, I can give some to my roommates. Which is actually going to happen before I leave for Chicago this weekend. I'm probably wondering, why are you going to Chicago? Well, I'm actually trying to put a proposal together for a cookbook. A proposal is the thing you send to the editor before they give you permission or money or whatever it is to publish a cookbook. Kind of like how you would send a standard manuscript submission to a fiction publisher, except food. Well, I'm a huge fan of the Dresden Files, and I've been kind of thinking this up for the past couple of years since I started running the blog. And I want to put together a cookbook based off the Dresden Files. I mean, they've got, for those who haven't read the Dresden Files is an urban fantasy series about a modern day wizard named Harry who solves mysteries by pretty much accident in Chicago. And the city of Chicago, I would say, is probably as much of a character as all the rest of the characters in Jim Butcher's series. But for me, it got to the point I'm going, it doesn't really make much sense for me to write a cookbook on a story that's based in Chicago, having never actually been there outside of the airport. So, spring break is coming up at the school I work at next week. I am going to Chicago, and I'm going to go eat all the things. I'm going to hit up a lot of the sites listed in the books. I'm going to eat more pizza than I'm probably ready to handle. And I'm going to probably drink pretty much any kind of dark beer that I can find that possibly could be similar to the homebrewed beer from McAnally in the series. I will probably regret this. No, I won't. Oh no, go to another city and eat and drink beer pretty much the entire week. I'm all for that. But yeah, as you can imagine, it's going to be pretty crazy with me doing all this, because I am actually streaming next week. Yes, from Chicago. Not my standard meal prep episode of Meal Prep Monday, but I will be... doing Munchies and Minis for at least a shorter episode of at least the Munchies part. Unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult for me to travel with little acrylic bottles of acrylic paint on the airplane, because I don't want to explode all over my stuff. I mean, don't really want to look like a Jackson Pollock piece. Let's see, was that all of them? Holy crap. That's actually all of them. Cool. But I have a microwave in my Airbnb, so we're going to be making a dish using the microwave, which is appropriate considering that next week's 52 weeks of D&D challenge word is magic. I'm going to be using ingredients that you can pack with you in an airport, in a suitcase on an airplane that are not going to explode on you, or at least with supplemental ingredients that you can find pretty easily where you happen to be and use up just as quickly, probably. So that is going to be sort of what I feature. So I've got about 4 ears worth of corn here. Now I'm going to slice up my asparagus. So let's do about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to start out with, see how we're doing. So first, I just want to remove the ends from my asparagus. So just going to cut off those ends. And next, I want to make these also about the same size as the rest of the stuff I'm cooking here. So, just so I'm saving some time, but also kind of showing you the technique here, I'm just going to do with a bias cut. A bias cut is kind of a cut on a diagonal. I demonstrated this earlier this week with my carrots, now I'm just going to do it with asparagus. So, I'm just going to cut about 1/2 inch thick pieces here on a bias, so they have that cool little diagonal shape, as well as expose a little bit more surface area. So, let's throw that into my prep bowl with my corn. As you see, I'm doing kind of a rocking motion with my knife. The knife is never actually leaving my cutting board, and therefore it's maintaining a little bit more control than it would be if you removed it from. Okay, and let's go with these last two. You know, some of my coworkers are going to be so happy to get a bowl full of produce tomorrow. Okay. Here, Nikki, have some asparagus. Okay, so I think 6 spears of asparagus kind of does it there. So, yes, well, I did actually develop this recipe beforehand. I didn't actually get the full measurements of what I wanted, so this is kind of a develop the recipe as I cook it. So, 6 spears. And let's see, I did about double that, and 1. Cool beans. Okay, how are we doing on time? It's about 7:35 now. And now it's time to move to some of my messier stuff to slice. So, got a Roma tomato here. It's huge. Most of the time you're going to find them a lot smaller than this. But today I just happened to stop by H Mart and they had pretty good sized ones here. You want to go usually pretty small, a bit smaller, as long as you have good firm skin on that. So now I'm just going to slice that in half while keeping that end on there. So, flat surface, stable surface. And now I'm going to cut it into eighths. Just kind of slice it in half where it meets it there. And you'll see what I mean, because I'm going to be deseeding these before dicing them. So, his little watery bit here, we don't want that in our succotash. So I'm just going to put the knife here right where it sort of meets the flesh there, and then kind of saw a little bit. Then push down on this end, firmly but not smushing it, as I just kind of shave that along the edge. And then just toss that. So once again, and as you see, it's kind of pushing that up. As I come through there, I can pull that away some. So I'm also not risking my fingers. So once again, kind of cutting that down. When it gets close there, just kind of slow down and stop. Pull it away. And there you go. And repeat ad nauseum. As you see, some of these are actually a little easier to get out than others, like that one. Okay, cool. And I realize I need a separate prep bowl for that, so I'm just going to grab that real quick. I need a larger one. Oh, that'll be fine. So, okay. So once again, like with the bell pepper, I'm just going to cut about 1/2 inch thick strips. And this is kind of the same instructions that you're going to follow when you make homemade salsa. But there you go, just kind of do the same thing there, like same kind of slices you do with the bell pepper, just kind of straight through. Okay, so once again, slice that in half. Slice those in half. And then kind of drag my knife a little bit in to kind of set it in there so it slices through a little easier. There we go. And now, just remove that. You're probably wondering, why isn't the cat out yet? I mean, you're cutting up food. I mean, granted, she's going crazy. Well, she will be, just not now. But she will when I bring this out. Because my cat is obsessed with bacon. Or just any kind of pork product. She will go nuts. She will throw a tantrum. It's the most adorable tantrum ever, but she will throw a tantrum. Okay. And you're probably thinking, oh, that's not that much mess for cutting a tomato. Well, it won't be this clean always. I mean, when you're first starting out, you're going to have seeds flying all over the place. But the more you do it, the less mess you'll have. Okay. So that's about 1 Roma tomato diced. So I'm just gonna put that there for now, because then I have my next thing I need to cut up, which is not much mess, but actually I'm gonna wipe that down a little bit with paper towels to dry off my surface here. And now I'm gonna just grab some fresh mint. Strip the leaves. Enjoy the fragrance. And as you see, I'm putting the stem, well, not really able to see it that much, but I'm putting the stems with my bell pepper scraps up here too. And what I'm going to want is about a 1/4 cup worth of shredded mint leaves, which this should give me. Yeah, that is what I wrote down. Okay. Nice little pile of herbs there. And now I'm going to take this pile of herbs and make it into a roll of herbs. And yes, you're probably thinking, oh, roll of herbs. 420 is not until next month. Well, yes, but no. It's going to look like that, but it's not going to be that because gross. We're not going to eat that. We're going to eat this. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you'll understand when you're older. So, okay. Just gonna roll up my pile of herbs so it looks like a different type of pile of herbs. And now, I'm just gonna do a chiffonade, which means cut into thin ribbons. So just kind of take that edge there and just slice along that edge. And you've got a ton of ribbons. Okay, so that should equal to about a quarter cup. I'm going to take about half of that, throw it with my tomatoes. The rest of that, I am going to put in a little prep dish, because that's going to be my garnish. Now remember, your garnishes should not only be edible, but go along with the flavors you're presenting in your dish, because people will eat the garnish. And that can just go into my stock bag. Okay. Cool. So yeah, that's about 1/8 of a cup of shredded mint that I've got there for my garnish. I'm going to set that to the side. And And just do a very quick cleanup. Meows. What is it, Mr. Moose? Moose Moose. Hi. How are you? Mouse. That's another one of my cats, Moosey. He's my husband's late grandparents' cat. Came with the house, and he is also a cuddle monster. He will also sing with me whenever I'm singing, or just whenever he wants attention. So every once in a while, when you hear me going meows or Mr. Moose, that's who I'm talking to. So, okay. Got our veggies, got more veggies. Right, this needs to go in a stock bag. Oh, right, and a succotash is not a succotash without the addition of lima beans. I know most people are not fans of it, but it works so well in a succotash that you're actually kind of grateful for it. It adds a little bit of protein and more substance to succotash. So we're going to be using that, but I'm going to spare you trying to find lima beans fresh by using frozen ones. And I need to get into my freezer anyway for my stock bag. So, stock bag, lima beans. Okay, and this is a 12-ounce bag, so that's about 12-ounce package, because I forgot what size I actually bought. So yes, beans, stock bag full of kitchen scraps. And it looks like I'm almost full on this one, as I have a bell pepper seed fly down my shirt. No, I am not getting that out on the air. Close, dang it. Okay, cool. Alright, so first thing in making a succotash, I need to prep my lima beans. So, I've got a small saucepan here, and I just need to cut this apart. Skeezors. Hello, Skeezors. And get a freezer bag for the remainder. Quart size. Okay. So, yeah. I'm just going to use about a half a package here. I'll put a little more back into the bag. Cool. Just so it kind of covers the bottom of a small saucepan. Next, I'm going to cover that with water, just so it covers the beans. So you can see that there. And now I'm going to move it to my stove. So you can see up there. We're going to turn it up to about a medium-high heat to bring it to a boil. So yeah, we're just going to wait on that while I then move back to our prep cam for the next part of our knife work. Now, you're probably wondering why. Okay, why are you using trout for this recipe? Well, for one, that was what was listed in that issue of Dragon magazine, and for two, we're going to be cutting those into strips. So I'm using a bit of a heavier chef's knife for this one to cut through the skin, and I will also be getting out a separate cutting board, a little cutting mat here, because it's easier to clean for me to just throw this thing into the dishwasher. So, got that. Now, when I first came up with this recipe, and the reason why I actually did have to kind of rush things in recreating it was that I'm thinking, okay, well, let's go do some rainbow stuffed trout. I mean, that's pretty small. You can make that into several different into a couple of fillets and all that, and just kind of standard. Have the big fillet with kind of skin in the middle, and then fold it over the succotash. Yeah, about that. Turns out rainbow trout is not in season yet, so I could not find it anywhere in my hometown, well, in Atlanta, which that's saying something. I mean, we have DeKalb Farmers Market. We've got H Mart. I can get all sorts of crazy imported stuff. I can't get rainbow trout. So instead, we are using steelhead trout, which is a lot like salmon. So I then had to reconfigure my recipe completely. But I'm okay for it because I think I like this idea a lot better than I did trying to pick the bones out of a couple of rainbow trout. So, got my big fillet of steelhead trout here. Just going to throw that away. Check on my beans, see how we're doing. We had a boil yet? Are we? Nope, they're still kind of cold. Okay. So back to our prep cam. Oh, now you're freaking out. Ginger, come here, come here. Up-ups, up-ups, come here, sweetie. Up-ups, up-ups. Wait, my hands smell like fish. Maybe she'll come up for that. Oh, come on. Princess, come here. Come on. Right. We'll stop trying to do that for a little while. So, what I want to do is do rolls of trout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fillet here and I'm going to cut it into strips. Now I need to be able to roll them up tightly. So I'm actually, instead of cutting like this crosswise, I'm going to cut this lengthwise. And do about inch thick strips with that. So as you can see, I'm just kind of drawing the knife through while eyeballing about how thick an inch is on there. So as you can see, that's kind of going through. This is why I also need a heavier duty knife, because I need to cut through that back skin. Or, you know, if I don't want to take my fingers off, I'm going to use some kitchen shears to cut right through that. Because I don't mind putting my kitchen shears through the dishwasher. I do mind putting this through the dishwasher, though. That, and I also prevent myself from damaging my fish. There we go. And a big thing of cooking is that you want to cut things so they're about the same size, so they cook in about the same amount of time. So as you see, I've got one strip going. Now I'm going to continue the process. Now granted, all these are not going to be the same length, but they still have to be the same thickness. So once again, taking about an inch, but right there, which you can see is about less than halfway through. I'm just going to pull that over so you can see it a little bit better. But I still want to have it be an inch thick on this side. So I'm just kind of following that. Some of it's cutting, some of it's not, but that's okay because I'm going to go in with some shears. There we go. There's another strip. And there we go. About an inch from that edge. And there's about an inch from that edge. So, now granted, you probably want to keep your package of bacon handy instead of just going ahead and taking out all of them, because you may actually end up with a larger fillet. I end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these bites. So, I mean, depending on how large your raiding party is, you may have to get definitely more than one fillet. You can also use salmon for this recipe, which salmon admittedly is a lot less expensive because it's more popular, so it is ordered in bulk more often. So now I've got my main cutting lines. I'm just taking my kitchen shears and cutting through the skin there. Okay, and there's the cut line. And there we go. And this also allows me to avoid cutting the flesh again by accident. So, there we go. Got 5 strips of fish. And now I'm going to put these in the pile to be washed. So, and now I'm regretting my decision because I was also needing to cut the bacon open. But that's okay because I've got another pair of kitchen shears and it's probably... I had another pair of kitchen shears. Where is my other pair of kitchen shears? Kitchen shears. Hello? Right. I'm going to use my regular pair of scissors, which, yes, that can also go in the dishwasher because I don't care. And try to avoid cross-contamination. Right. And I forgot another thing. Oh. The beets, for example. Right. Stove. There we go. I just turned that down to low. I think it's been boiling for about 5 minutes, 3 minutes. So let's go ahead and put our timer down for about 8 minutes. Cool. I was so focused on cutting fish and bacon. All right, so gonna need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strips of bacon. Come on, out of the package. All right, and I'm also going to need some either skewers or toothpicks. We'll see just how many I need. Like which ones I need when I actually roll these suckers up. So, toothpicks, are you in here? Oh, no, they're right over here. Okay. And get another sip of wine. Right. So, I've got my bacon, I've got my salmon, and a lot of optimism, and not enough wine. So this is how it's going to go. I've got my salmon here. Just gonna put that back into the view so you can see it. And now I'm gonna wrap these smallest side first. Kind of a pinwheel shape. And then I'm definitely going to need a skewer for that. Stab it so all goes through with a skewer. Come on. Question my life choices, and there you go. Salmon and bacon skewer. And now, I'm going to take that and put it on a baking sheet that I totally forgot to prepare with cooking spray. to demonstrate. Haha. Cool. So, now we're just going to repeat that. Place the thickest edge of the salmon towards the end, and the thickest part of your bacon, and then roll it up. And the way this is going to act as it's baking in the oven, which that reminds me, I need to preheat my oven for, let's see, 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which I will do with my pinky because it does not have fish stuff on it. And my knuckle. So again, rolled it up. Actually, I'm going to see if I can fit that on my skewer, because I do kind of have limited space as far as skewer space is concerned. So, once again, just going to stab that so it goes all the way through. This is why dexterity is your friend. Come on. Skin can be a bit thick. Come on. Actually, that's kind of pierced the side of the skin, but there we go. Then I'm just going to take a toothpick there and kind of stab that through in the end to keep the bacon skewered to the other side of the bacon. This thing is, bacon, most proteins as they cook tend to stick to the other protein and fat that it's attached to. So as this bacon cooks, it'll stick to the other piece of bacon, and therefore make it a single solid piece when this cooks up. So, once again, put that on there and separate them slightly so these two pieces don't actually stick together. Okay. Right. And let's get to our next strip. Okay. Now, once again, just going to wrap that up. Smallest side first, to kind of salmon bacon pinwheels. Yeah. Okay. Come on. I can say that bacon, even when uncooked, smells amazing. Get through there. Aha! There we go. That wasn't too loud. Okay. There's one. Stay. Let's see here. I think this one might actually fit this piece a little better. Okay. Okay. There we go. And there's two on there. move that to my tray. And I've got one last one here. So, okay, it looks like that's the thickest part of the bacon. So, let's again roll up from the smallest side. Okay, that sounds like my beans are done. But I'm just going to let it sit just a little bit. Shut up. Just raise the heat up a little lower. It doesn't look like it's simmered all that much. Okay, and then very stubborn with me. Okay, come on. Okay. And I'm just going to hit that with another toothpick to keep everything stable. Okay. So, that is our last little salmon roll, trout roll. That's what it is. Okay, stick that on my prepared baking sheet while I move all this stuff to be cleaned off. Okay, there we go. So I've got those rolls ready to go as I wait for my oven to preheat. Just going to take a little while, but now I need to make up my succotash, especially now that my lima beans are done simmering. So, first gotta wash all this off my hands. Turn off those lima beans. Turn on my skillet. Let's move it to the stove cam really quick. Turn the heat up to about medium heat. Vent hood on, so I am venting some of that heat off, especially now that things are warming up some. So, okay, first I need to drain my lima beans. Drained. Okay, that is still heating up, and I'll show you what it's going to look like when it's hot enough just in a second, because now I'm going to grab myself some more wine. I still have some. It's fine. Okay. So as I wait for that to get hot enough, I'm just going to do a little bit of cleanup. For example, bacon. That needs to get in a bag and no longer on my kitchen counter. Whew, yes. Oh wow, we're actually going over the time expected. That's okay, because the mini that I'm working on is actually now in its final stages. I only have a few layers left to go. And once I actually get this in the oven, it's really not going to take all that long. What do I have here? Move the stuff. Check that stove cam. Let's see. It's hot enough. take some cold water. It's not hot enough. So what I want is a nice fat sizzle. So yeah, in the meantime, just doing some cleanup so I don't drive myself insane later after I'm finished streaming tonight. Because I still have stuff to do, believe it or not. Alright. See how we looking. Just a little bit more, I think. So in the meantime, just kind of had an idea at some point where I'd probably do a little bit of singing on air just because, you know, I feel like it. But also, I've been in several bands over the past couple of years. The current one I'm in, which we've quite honestly haven't performed in absolutely forever. It's called the Gin Rebellion. It's kind of we started out as sort of a steampunk band, or rather a band that played at steampunk conventions. While the best way to describe our music is a little bit of kind of folk fusion with sort of retro stylings, but as of late we've done a lot of swing type tunes as well as Americana type tunes. Still, it's been a while. Oh yeah, that skillet looks done. Oh yeah, let's take a look there. Been a while since we performed. I mean, the last show we did was for Atlanta Steampunk Expo. Okay, so now that I've got that skillet nice and hot, I am first just going to do a drizzle of olive oil. Any kind of cooking oil works for this, really. And then I'm going to add my peppers and leeks to the pan with a pinch of kosher salt. And I'm going to set the time for about 6 minutes. You want to kind of stir cook it. And what we want to do is get some good browning on that red pepper while softening up our leeks. And already I am regretting my decision to use such a small skillet. We'll be fine though, because this will cook down quite a bit. Just going to add just a little bit more cooking oil to that. Yeah. But yeah, last time we performed was back in October for the Atlanta Steampunk Expo. And we've got about, 4 members, including myself. I sing and play guitar. We have my bandmates, one of which plays guitar and also sings. We both kind of trade off the vocalist's duties, or at the same time we harmonize really well. Then there's my friend Austin, who's our bass player, and we call him the Austin Sirkin because it's funny, and because he's just an awesome guy all around. He's kind of responsible for my husband and I meeting when we did, actually. But then we have Nick, who plays, well, Jason was the one before that, and then Nick, Jason's husband, who plays accordion, mandolin, banjo, and sometimes guitar. Though they also have a theremin, which we haven't really put in for anything yet, but we tend to call him our banjo-banjo-accordionist. So yeah, there's that. I'm just going to check my stove real quick. But yeah, part of the problem with not performing in a while is that we don't really get to try out some of our newer stuff, especially if it's not completely hammered out. I mean, as you can tell, I'm pretty busy. I stream twice a week as well, do a recipe blog post. But I just kind of miss it, you know? Especially since my latest song is kind of inspired by the annoying Orange in Chief. I also have a song that's kind of about an old west town that gets taken over by zombies. What other fun ones do I have off the top of my head? Well, I got my older stuff. Admittedly, I don't have much time to write songs much anymore. Sometimes it takes me a couple of years to actually hammer one out, just to get it perfect. I mean, for all I know, by the time I actually, record this one about the annoying Orange in Chief, he may not actually be in office, or, we might all be dead. So, best and worst case scenarios. Okay, so just kind of stir, cooking. This smells amazing. I'm just gonna say that. Okay. Oh goodness, but yeah, the first song is called Mr. Brown Cow, because what do you get when you mix red, white, blue, and orange together? And the zombie one's called Willow, and it's actually, like I said, it's a serious song, so I might test singing out in a different stream, just because I'm a little worried about how my voice might act with this mic. But, if you want to give it a listen, kind of risk your eardrums, let me know. Okay. See, I'm getting a little bit of browning on those leeks. That's why I just want to keep stirring it so it doesn't burn. But in the meantime, since I know I need to add butter to this recipe, I'm just going to grab that out of the fridge. Admittedly, I've been holding off on certain things, especially dairy products, because I don't want them to melt on me before I need them. So, butter. Let's see, I'm going to need, oh boy, 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and have that ready to go. When do I need to have that ready to go? Before the tomatoes and mint. So, pile that on top of there. Okay, so we've got 5 seconds left on that. Next, I'm going to add all of those veggies you saw me cut earlier. And like I said, regretting my life decisions. Okay, so I guess what we learned is we don't need that much corn for this recipe. Learning things every day. Okay. But yeah, all those veggies earlier, and about a teaspoon of smoked paprika. Normally when you would make a succotash, you would cook the bacon first to cut up and then cook all the vegetables in bacon fat. Well, you could do that, add a little bit of bacon. Smoked paprika has kind of a bacon flavor without adding extra bacon. So, I just added that to there, and I'm wanting to cook that for about another 6 minutes. I've already set my timer for it. And I'm going to add another pinch of kosher salt to my mix. how we're doing. Then I think I'm gonna add another round. Some olive oil since that's soaked up some. Smelling lovely. Yeah, as I stir and cook it, the flavors are going to meld together. You see the leeks are starting to caramelize a little bit, which is going to add some really nice flavor to our succotash. Doing. As far as the rest of that corn, I'm just gonna stick it into a freezer bag so I'm not wasting it. I'm trying to pour it in. I'm just gonna use my hands. My hands are clean. Besides, it's going into the freezer. And then it'll be cooked. So, yeah. Are you pouting, Ginger? She also likes to use my anti-fatigue mat as a bed, which is adorable, don't get me wrong. I swear sometimes my cat's trying to kill me, though. Was the bacon worth it, my love? Killing your mother for bacon? Okay. And here's seeing if I can fit even more into the pan. And like I said, yes, you can see it is cooking down. I think I'm going to write this recipe so it only uses about half the amount of corn. So let's nix that. Let's go with about those 2 ears of corn are just fine. Good thing I used a pencil on this sheet. Okay. Just another pinch of salt. Okay. There we go. And the reason why I was emptying out that remaining corn is so I have that prep bowl. Okay. Yeah. The trouble with using Harbor Freight batteries is that they kind of die. Okay, how long ago do you guys remember me actually saying stuff? That's a thing, unfortunately. Okay, now you can hear. Okay, Sabradell, I know you've been here a lot longer. What do you last remember me actually saying? If it was about a half an hour ago, I'm probably just gonna cry. Succotash. Great. Do you actually remember me talking when I had these things down? Maybe? Possibly? Crap! Okay, so trout wrapped in bacon, stuffed with succotash. That was this week's episode. I saw the threading of the fish. Wow. These batteries are useless. Okay, just as a heads up, these batteries are sweet. So, if the sound ever cuts out, just let me know in the chat. There is supposed to be sound on this. I will have the recipe cards up on, what's it called? On the blog, as well as on Patreon. I might actually make that card for free, considering that if the sound was out as long as I suspect it was, this episode's really not all that helpful to people. So, yes. Great. It is 9 o'clock. If you want to get the recipe card for the succotash stuffed trout with bacon, please check out the blog tomorrow. I will have it up, posted with a link to the recipe card. One of the few times that I will be posting it for free. Thank you so much for joining me. I do apologize for the lack of sound, and I really should be watching my sound filter a little bit more, apparently. But, yeah. Great times. I'm gonna go cry into my wine now. With a smile. Because Lexapro doesn't let me cry. Anyway, to end things on a happier note, do join us for next week's Munchies and Minis. I will be streaming from Chicago, where I will be making a Fey wine and moon honey raisin cake using a microwave from my Airbnb. It's basically going to be wine and tea soaked raisins, but it should be delicious. And yeah, thank you for joining us for Munchies and Minis. My name is Catherine Barsonistas, and you just watched the Gluttonous Geek Presents Munchies and Minis. Have a great night.